What's going on, Lions fans? Stephen Will, Detroit Den 313. The NFL season is fastly approaching. We appreciate everything you guys have been doing. Hammering that like button, hammering the subscribe button. Keep that up. If you're new here, love to have you as a watcher. Will, I think we got a good one today. And I know we're not that type of channel, but I feel like we're going to spin this to a Stephen Will type of show. How are you feeling on this fine day?
I'm feeling good, man. Off of work, getting to talk some Detroit Lions football. That's always good. But when your parents like us, is there ever really a day off? You know what I mean?
No, I haven't had a day off since literally April. Will, this is a rare opportunity that Stephen Will are off together on the same day. It's just absolutely one of the rarest things in the world.
Yeah, so just trying to take full advantage, man. But yeah, feeling good. Just excited. Always excited when we get on here and talk some football.
So we're not a trade channel, all right? Anytime a player becomes available, if it's pertinent to the Detroit Lions or there's a potential, we'll hop on here. We'll talk about it once and let it be dead. So with the recent news of Trey Hendrickson, we've talked about it before, Will. We've talked about our piece on him. We've talked about how he would be a good fit for the Lions. We've talked about the cost, what we'd have to give up. We talked about all that. So we're going to spin this today, and we're going to have potentially a debate because I have no idea which side of the fence you sit on, and I think vice versa. But Micah Parsons, Trey Hendrickson, who do you think would be a better fit for the Detroit Lions? Well, with both of these superstars saying they want to trade, contract stuff going on, everyone thinks Detroit needs a pass rusher. I'm not as diehard on that island as a lot of other people, but I can understand it. So who do you think would be a better fit, Micah Parsons or Trey Hendrickson?
They're both freaking good players, man.
Mm.
Both freaking good players. I don't want to be disrespectful to either. I've already given my 2 cents on the whole Micah Parsons thing and how I feel about what he said about the city of Detroit and Jalen Ramsey coming to Detroit, and why would anybody want to come here? I'm not going to say that it's water under the bridge because it isn't, but I respect his football, and if he was ever wearing Honolulu blue, it would be water under the bridge. But when we're talking about just a pure fit for the Detroit Lions, man, I'd have to go with style of play. I'd have to go, and the totality of everything, I have to go with Trey. And the reason why that is because Trey being a little bit older, Trey being a little bit more of a stout run stopper, as well as a sack king, a guy that can go get the quarterback, I think it would fit better opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. If that makes sense. Schematically trying to put it together. When you talk about how Brad mentions, and even Coach Campbell has mentioned, how Marcus Davenport is the perfect complement to an Aiden Hutchinson, I think that Trey would be an even better complement. His style of play, his body type, I think it just fits. Micah would come in here and want to be the guy who is pinning his ears back and just getting after the passer. And I don't know if that fits for a D line with Aiden Hutchinson on the opposite side. So for those reasons, I got to go with Trey. And when you get into the economics, I think that you could pay Trey for a couple of seasons and figure it out, then get him off of the books after you've won a couple of Super Bowls, and then have time to draft the next guy and get the next guy in. Micah Parsons is going to want the same $50 million that we're going to have to give Aiden Hutchinson for the next bazillion years. So that's another reason why it only makes sense for me for it to be Trey. I do understand, because I know people have probably typed already that we're dreaming here. We're dreaming here. But I will say this, Steve. I will say this. I got a financial guy that's taken care of our family for a long time. His name's Ellis Liddell. Shout out to Ellis, man. Taking care of my grandparents.
Are his initials DW? You know who I'm talking about.
No, Ellis Liddell. But yeah, taking care of my family for a long time, man. And I was asking him some questions about some stuff. And he did say, listen, I'm not in on the books completely, but what I see from what they got from the, from the cap, what they got left over in cap, and their personnel, could they move some things around and do it? They could. they could do it. So we're saying there's a chance from a financial guy. There's a chance, there's a possibility. Stephen Will, I'll just say Will. Will still doesn't think that it's a probable chance, but it could be done if there were some sacrifices made, which is why I was willing to talk about it a little bit more. But yeah, Steve, for me, it would be Trey. You get him on the books for a few seasons, then get him off of the books. He's probably satisfied. Then it opens up that cap space, give you a time to be able to draft somebody and get them into the building to replace him. Probably not going to draft a Trey Henderson, but hey, you never know. And then after that, you go on about your business, man. That's where I'm at. That's where I sit. Am I in the ballpark of something you would agree with, or are you sitting on the opposite side of the fence?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I really there's no wrong answer to this question on which one helps the Detroit Lions, in my opinion. But I really thought you were gonna go Micah Parsons. I really did. But you laid out your cards. You showed your work like your teachers used to ask you back in the day. Don't just give me an answer, but give me a reason why. Because I'm with you. I think the biggest thing is why Trey Hendrickson would be a better fit is because the length of his contract would probably be shorter than what Micah wants. I think when you're talking giving up multiple first round picks for Micah Parsons, and then you have to sign him, I think the minimum amount of years he's going to want is at least 6. 5, you could maybe make a case for 5, but I think 6 is probably the number. 6, 7 years. He's going to want somewhere in that TJ Watt range of $40-some million a year. And then we got to talk about Aiden Hutchinson. Whereas on the other hand, I feel like you can get Trey Hendrickson. I feel like personally, those years might be, you could probably swindle that down to 3 or 4, where his contract and Hutchinson's don't overlap for very long. They will overlap for about a year or 2, I believe. But it's also Trey Henderson's the leading NFL leading sacker in the last 2 seasons. Like if we're talking about Aiden Hutchinson, who has a new rule implemented in training camp so that offenses can get work in, and then you add a guy like Trey Hendrickson, who has led the league in sacks the last 2 years. Who do you put in a one-on-one matchup with this defensive line? Well, Trey Hendrickson, Aiden Hutchinson, Tyleik Williams, and eventually Aleem McNeil. That's a dominant defensive line. And I know you could sub out Trey Hendrickson from Micah Parsons, and it would still be very, 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 very dominant. But with Micah Parsons being younger, going to want a longer contract, probably more dollars per year. I feel like that's probably the only reason that I'm out. Well, you're not willing to let bygones be bygones with that comment he made 2 years ago. Well, you're still holding on to that.
If he were to wear Honolulu blue, then I would. Other than that, he's dead to me.
I hope I never wrong you, Will. I hope I just never wrong you, because this guy here holds a grudge. Yeah, this guy's just. I don't know how Emily lives with you, Will, just holding grudges like this. One wrong and you're just dead to us, huh?
I don't play.
What do you think it would take? How many first round picks do you think it would take to get either one of these guys? Do you feel like that is something that comes into play as well?
Potentially. I think it all depends on what the package is. If you're just talking about just getting him in the building with no personnel, then yeah, you're going to have to do some first round picks, maybe, especially for Micah Parsons. Trey, I've seen it talked about maybe a couple of second rounders and a guy. So I don't know. I don't want to speak to it because I haven't really dug into what it would take and what they're talking about would be an acceptable offer, or what the Cincinnati Bengals or the Dallas Cowboys are going after. I do know that Mr. Jones wants to gouge you. So I would imagine, and the youth of Micah Parsons is probably going to make it absolutely be first round draft picks. But at the same time, when I look at Trey, gonna be turning 31 years old, that's got to play into there too, man. You know, you get him in the building, if you get 4 years out of him, that you're doing good. And I don't know that I would be signing him I'd be trying to sign him for 3. I'd be trying to sign a 3-year deal. So, hey, if you're telling me you're going to get him on the books for a season that's not even going to lap with Aiden Hutchinson, then 2 more seasons where their contract overlaps, where you can front load and back load and play games with those contracts, that gets interesting. But like you said, if you're talking about Micah Parsons, where it's got to be a 5-year deal and he's going to want, I think you were being polite, Steve, talking about $40 million. I think Micah Parsons wants to be one of the higher paid defensive players he's going to be after that 50 million as well. If you ask me. That said, you're going to have two $50 million guys on your defense for multiple seasons.
You better bring me multiple Super Bowls if you got two $50 million guys rushing the passer.
And then what are you willing to sacrifice? I've thought about this. I don't have it in me to disrespect anybody on this defense, but there are some players that you may be able to talk me into sacrificing for a player of their caliber, but I wouldn't like it. I'll tell you that. I wouldn't like it at all. I wouldn't like sacrificing anybody on this defense. I love our defense. I love our guys. So I just don't know.
You got someone in mind that you would be willing to sacrifice, or do you want to keep that close
No,
to the vest?
I don't. It's just when I think about the people and who we may have to sacrifice and people who are coming up to be paid. If you're telling me I could have a defensive line, Steve, of Trey Hendrickson, Talik Williams, Aleem McNeil, and Aiden Hutchinson, would I be willing to sacrifice somebody? It's hard to say no, because anybody who has any football common sense understands if you have a pass rush that's giving quarterbacks zero time to throw the ball in a passing league, then your secondary doesn't need to be phenomenal. Your linebackers don't have to be phenomenal. If you got two guys that are taking on two blockers at a time and they're keeping those linebackers clean and letting them run free to make tackles, you don't have to be a phenomenal linebacker if you're not getting blocked. So for those reasons, could I find somebody in that linebacking core, that secondary, that I could do without? If I absolutely had to. If you're going to tell me I have the best defensive line in football, I'm sure I probably could. I'm not putting any deep thought into it because I love all of them.
I'm going to ask you a question, Will, and before I ask it, I already know the answer, but I have to because good journalists ask good questions, Will, and that's what we try to be here as good content creators. Would you sacrifice Brian Branch for a Trey Hendrickson and you have a 4-year Super Bowl window with him?
No.
Would you sacrifice Kirby Joseph?
No.
Would you sacrifice Jameson Williams or Sam Laporta or Jahmyr Gibbs?
No.
No, not even a question.
No.
You're a tough one. You're a tough one to please, Will, because I feel like I don't want to go down that road. It's tough because I feel like if you really, really want to win a Super Bowl, and I feel like we do have a team that can win a Super Bowl. Let me just start with that. But we're talking two guys who significantly moved the needle, like signing Zadarius Smith, potentially signing Matthew Judon, who I know had a meeting with Miami Dolphins. We talked about that in an earlier episode. Signing those guys are great, but I don't feel like they really, really move the needle like a Trey Hendrickson or a Micah Parsons. So if a sacrifice has to be made, I can understand what's going on. I can understand that maybe that means we lose one of our players that's going to demand $20 million because we have to pay Trey Hendrickson 30 or something like that in this scenario. And again, I know that that's not how Brad Holmes operates. I know he's not ever gone out and made a big splashy trade for a player who's established. Do I feel like he will one day? Yes, I think he will one day, but I don't know when that day is going to come. And I don't think that now is the time with where our team is set up. We've drafted well. We've done well in free agency. So I don't see him making a splash on either one of these two. But let me ask you this, Will. If you have Micah Parsons for 6 years, how many Super Bowls do you think you win in a 6-year span?
I have him for 6 years. I think you're posing a question if I have that whole D line for 6 years.
Yes.
I'm expecting 2 Super Bowls, and Super Bowls are freaking hard to win. That's me being conservative. I'm expecting at least 2 because I've now went all in. And Steve, let me do one more thing. But as I'm talking to you, I'm looking it up. I'm looking at, as you asked me that question, and I've thought about it before. I was thinking about if I lost one of those guys, what does it do to the cap? What does it do to the cap? And Steve, Avonte Maddox, who I'm more than okay with being on a football field, he's making $2 million. So essentially, if I let a guy go that I was paying or about to pay $20 million, and that's already making more than him, if I let them go, then and he gets on the field, who I'm okay with being on the field, and now I have the best D-line in football, arguably, probably one of the best D-lines ever. Steve, and then to do that, I put one of those guys on the field and pay him $2 million. And then I'm looking at a guy like Rocky Sin. He's making $1.1 million, Steve. There's ways that things can get done. So I think when I was speaking earlier there's possibilities that could allow us to do certain things. There is, but I just don't like them. So Steve, I don't believe in lying to you. So I'm going to tell you the absolute truth, even though you didn't ask me or catch me. There was nobody that I was going to say yes to. There's no starter on this team.
I kind of figured that, Will.
Nobody, because I love these guys so much that I don't want to be sitting in Brad's shoes making these type of decisions. But if he made them, I would shed one tear and then go get fitted for my Super Bowl ring. There's a difference, Steve. I'm trying to figure out my ring size right now. If we sign one of those two guys or trade for one of those two guys, I'm just going to get fitted. I'm booking hotels. I'm buying Super Bowl tickets. I'm getting ahead of the game. And I'm just going to let work know you're either going to allow me to have vacation time or you're going to notice that I'm not here. Because I got things to do come first weekend of February. That's the bottom line. So, yeah, don't like them. I hate even talking about losing one of these guys, Steve. It is, and I'm not even an emotional person. But when you start talking about guys like Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, Jack Campbell, Terry and Arnold, like, I'm not even saying these are the guys that are on the list of people that could be not here. It's just all of them, all of those guys on that defense. I love them, man. They're Detroit Lions. They're great guys. They're giving us everything that we got. So I couldn't say yes to anybody.
When I look at this roster, Will, there's, just as it's sitting today, there's no glaring needs. So if you're telling me I pull off a trade for a Trey Hendrickson or a Micah Parsons and my D-line for the next 4 years minimum, because we have a Lee McNeil who just re-signed a new contract last year, your defensive line for the next minimum 4 years, assuming we re-sign Hutch, which fans will probably riot in the streets if we don't. Aiden Hutchinson, Lee McNeil, Tyleik Williams, who's on a rookie deal, so you got him for 5, and then Micah Parsons / Trey Hendrickson. That's your starting line. What do you need? Maybe a center at some point, depending on Graham Glasgow, maybe a left tackle, depending on what's going on with Taylor Decker. You're set at every other position other than a couple of guys you have to re-sign. Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, Brian Branch. I feel like I'm missing one, but those are the big ones. So if I have to sacrifice some picks and I'm picking pick 32, a Trey Hendrickson or Micah Parsons is more than likely going to be better than any player in the draft I'm going to draft at pick 32. So everyone who thinks, oh, don't give up draft picks, you have a all-pro pass rusher already on the roster, and the team, the Cowboys or the Bengals, get pick 32. Like, good luck trying to find someone to replace that late in the first round. Can it happen? Yeah, it could, but the odds are not very great that you're going to find Trey Hendrickson's replacement with the 32nd pick. So needle movers, Will. That's what I'm all about. I don't want to trade for someone, and I'm not going to give up all these assets and cash for someone who's not going to make us instant higher on the hierarchy of Super Bowl contenders. And I feel like there's only a couple guys who could have done it. Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, who just signed a new deal. So those guys are off the table. So we're talking Hendrickson and Micah Parsons are massive, massive needle movers. Let me ask you this, Will. Lions are going to the Super Bowl. Stephen Will road trip all the way to California. At what point do you throw me out of the car because you're sick of me? What state do you think we make it to?
I don't think there's anything that can make me angry. We're headed to go watch the Lions watch the Super Bowl.
I thought for sure you'd say the Ohio border. I thought for sure you'd say by the time we cross the Ohio border, Steve's got to walk to California. I
think we're living our best life all the way there.
Just listening to the Theo sing the Detroit Lions fight song the whole way for what, 20, 28, 30 hours, whatever it takes to get to San Francisco.
Forward down the field, Steve.
I like it. Just grab some Flamin' Hot Cheetos, some Mountain Dew Code Red, and we're going to be on our way. We'll be out in Cali in no time. Anything else for tonight?
No, that's it, man. I've been trying to – I refuse to get excited, but it's another one of those situations where your mind starts flowing and you start thinking about what it would be like. I'm trying to keep it together.
Yeah, and we understand the likelihood of either one of these guys coming to Detroit is slim to none, and Slim probably just left the building. But these are guys who really do make the Lions Super Bowl favorites. I think we're a top 5 team to win the Super Bowl right now. You had one of these guys, It's who do we play in the Super Bowl, in my opinion. Who's coming out of the AFC would be the only thing I'd have to question. So we had to have a little fun today. I know a lot of people get on here and they say, oh, there's absolutely no chance. We're with you. It's probably not going to happen, but it's fun to talk about. Stick around, hit that like button. We'll be back later with another show.
Peace.